Hello. Okay, let's just spend a couple, 2 or 3 minutes focusing on the breath. Okay, so now let's just set a positive motivation for this evening's session. Think the purpose of my life is to lead all sentient beings from suffering to enlightenment. In order to do that, I have to reach enlightenment myself first. And that depends on studying, contemplating, and meditating on the entire path to enlightenment and receiving the realizations of each step, each of the hundreds and thousands of steps on the path. So achieving realizations of the path depends on the seed, meditating on the particular topic, accompanied by purification, creation of merit, and praying to the Guru as one with the deity. So this was the advice received from Manjushri himself by Lama Tsongkhapa. So in order to do that, to achieve these realizations, we need to know what the path is, what it contains, and therefore we are studying this short text that is, in a way, Buddhism in a nutshell. This text by Lama Tsongkhapa called The Foundation of All Good Qualities. So in order to set the motivation, in order to reach enlightenment for the sake of all sentient beings, I'm going to participate in this class on the glance meditation on the entire Lama Rim called Foundation of All Good Qualities. So like that, we generate the enlightened motivation of bodhicitta for what we're about to do. So doing this Dharma action, studying this important text with the bodhicitta motivation creates about as much merit as we can. Okay, so this is the fifth and final session in this module on Buddhism in a nutshell. So just to briefly review what we've done up to now, I'll just read these earlier verses that we've been talking about. The foundation of all good qualities is the kind and venerable Guru. Correct devotion to him is the root of the path. By clearly seeing this and applying great effort, please bless me to rely upon him with great respect. Understanding that the precious freedom of this rebirth is found only once is greatly meaningful and difficult to find again. Please bless me to generate the mind that unceasingly, day and night, takes its essence. This life is as impermanent as a water bubble. Remember how quickly it decays and death comes. After death, just like a shadow follows the body, the results of negative and positive karma ensue. Finding firm and definite conviction in this, please bless me always to be careful to abandon even the slightest of negativities and to accomplish only virtuous deeds. Seeking samsaric pleasures is the door to all suffering. They are uncertain and cannot be relied upon. Recognizing these shortcomings, please bless me to generate the strong wish for the bliss of liberation. Led by this pure thought, mindfulness, alertness, and great caution arise. The root of the teachings is keeping the pratimoksha vows. Please bless me to accomplish this essential practice. So I'll just finish reading the text, then we'll go back. Just as I've fallen into the sea of samsara, so have all mother migratory beings. Bless me to see this, train in supreme bodhicitta, and bear the responsibility of freeing migratory beings. Clearly recognizing that I will not achieve enlightenment by developing bodhicitta without practicing the three types of morality, please bless me to practice the bodhisattva vows with great energy. By pacifying distractions to wrong objects and correctly analyzing the meaning of reality, please bless me to generate quickly within my mind stream the unified path of calm abiding and special insight. Having become a pure vessel by training in the general path, please bless me to enter the holy gateway of the fortunate ones, the supreme Vajra vehicle. At that time, the basis of accomplishing the two attainments is keeping pure vows and samayas. Having become firmly convinced of this, please bless me to protect these vows and pledges like my life. Then, having realized the importance of the two stages, the essence of the Vajrayana, by practicing with great energy, never giving up the 4 sessions, please bless me to realize the teachings of the Holy Guru. Like that, may the gurus who show the noble path and the spiritual friends who practice it have long lives. Please bless me to pacify completely all outer and inner hindrances. In all my lives, never separated from perfect gurus, may I enjoy the magnificent Dharma by completing the qualities of the stages and the paths. May I quickly attain the state of Vajradhara. So that's it. That's Buddhism in a nutshell. So the last verse we did last time was led by this pure thought. Mindfulness, alertness, and great caution arise. The root of the teachings is keeping the pratimoksha vows. Please bless me to accomplish this essential practice. So then we talked about that and Kunalama's commentary. And then he finished his talk on that verse by saying, then after generating the mind renouncing samsara, it is necessary to generate bodhicitta. Without bodhicitta, we cannot receive enlightenment. Therefore, it's necessary to practice bodhicitta. So that verse, as I just read, just as I've fallen into the sea of samsara, so have all mother migratory beings. Bless me to see this, train in supreme bodhicitta, and bear the responsibility of freeing migratory beings. So Kunalama Rinpoche says, look at yourself. Since beginningless time, you've been suffering incredibly by wandering endlessly through the various realms of cyclic existence, mainly the hell, preta, and animal realms. So those lower realms, that Lama Zopa Rinpoche calls our permanent address. And just as you've been suffering in samsara since beginningless time, so too have all other samsaric sentient beings. Thinking in this way, cultivate bodhicitta, or as the prayer says, please bless me to receive bodhicitta by understanding this. So we divide the teachings in different ways, different times, like Hinayana and Mahayana. Or we divide Hinayana into Shravakayana, Pratyeka Buddhayana, or we divide Mahayana into Paramitayana or Vajrayana. So we also can divide the actual practice of the path into these three scopes, so-called, or the path of the lower capable being, the path of the middle capable being, the path of the great capable being, or sometimes we talk about definitive teachings and interpretive teachings. So like that, we also talk about the three principal aspects of the path. Sure, most of you know what they are. Anybody know? I can't see most people. Anyway, the three principal aspects of the path are renunciation, bodhicitta, and the right view of emptiness. So that's what he's referring to here. So, Rinpoche said, after generating the mind, renouncing samsara, so that's renunciation. So renunciation, there's a very good little booklet that we published, must be 20 years ago now, called The Essence of Tibetan Buddhism by Lama Yeshe. It was a little free book. which you used to be able to get at the centre before it was shut down. But it's available online. So the first part of the book is Lama Yeshe's teachings on the three principal aspects of the path: renunciation, bodhicitta, and right view. And in fact, there's another short Lamrim teaching by Lama Tsongkhapa. This one here is in the form of a prayer, please bless me to see this, please bless me to practice, etc. That one is in the form of a letter to a disciple. I think maybe he was going into retreat. So Lama Tsongkhapa wrote him this letter, which is a text called the three principal aspects of the path. So that's where he specifically talks about these three topics. So the renunciation refers to the two lower scopes, or the path of the being of lower capability and the lower capable being, and the path of the middle capable being, as Lama Zopa Rinpoche translates those two levels of the path. And so renunciation it's extremely, what it is a clear understanding of attachment and its shortcomings, and the danger of samsaric pleasures, or what we call happiness. What normal people, ordinary people call happiness, which is what we all strive for, every day. Trying to be happy and avoid suffering. But this samsaric happiness, which Lama Tsongkhapa said, seeking samsaric pleasure is the door to all suffering. So please bless me to generate a strong wish for liberation. That's renunciation. So I think we've seen how, talked about last time, I think, how samsaric pleasure, or the perfections of samsara, so-called, are not real happiness, even though our mind labels those experiences as happiness, and we're sort of pulled towards them all the time. But what we need to see is that they're not real happiness. They're not true happiness. They're suffering in disguise. They're suffering disguised as happiness or pleasure. And somebody, was it Shanti Deva? I can't remember. Somebody described it as honey on a razor blade. So, the honey is sweet. You try to lick it off the razor blade, you're going to cut your tongue. So it's a very thin veneer of pleasure over a sharp blade of suffering. So we should think of samsaric pleasures, whatever they are, sense pleasures, things we like to see, we like to hear, like to smell, like to taste, like to touch. I mean, really, it's the story of our life. It's a life spent in the pursuit of suffering, thinking it's a life spent in the pursuit of happiness and pleasure and fulfillment. But of course, it's not fulfilling at all. I mean, if it were, we wouldn't be here right now. We'd be off enjoying ourselves somewhere. So I don't know if I have to try prove that it's not real pleasure. I think we talked about that before anyway. So just to go on, there's book we published a few years ago by Lama Zopa Rinpoche called How to Practice Dharma, which is essentially Lama Zopa Rinpoche's extensive teachings on the 8 worldly dharmas, and I think, I mentioned, I think, was it this, I don't know if it was this module or the previous one where I talked about this book, The Door to Satisfaction, where Rinpoche says, it says here, in this book, The Door to Satisfaction, he was giving a set of teachings called Kadampa teachings, which we published as another book called Kadampa Teachings, a series of 10 discourses based on a 15th century text of the Tibetan yogi Lodro Gyaltsen called Opening the Door of Dharma. So Lama Zopa startled his audience by declaring that it was only after reading this text in his late 20s that he understood the real meaning of practicing Dharma. This was startling because everyone present knew from their years of experience as Rinpoche's students, or from his reputation, that in fact every moment of his life had been devoted to Dharma, to spiritual practice, that he was a perfect example of a Dharma practitioner. Clearly there was something meaningful to be listened to here. So, I mean, that book was talking about the dangers of attachment and how the real practice of Dharma is abandoning attachment and transforming the arising of attachment into the path. So this book, How to Practice Dharma, the teachings on the 8 worldly dharmas, is an extensive treatment of that topic, and highly recommended. So when we talk about renunciation or renouncing, samsaric pleasures, renouncing attachment to samsara or cyclic existence, what we're really, if we don't want to experience suffering in cyclic existence, we need to actually, what we need to renounce really is the cause of suffering, which is which is the delusions, and so attachment and anger in particular, and their root, which is the ignorance, seeing the I, the self, as inherently existing from its own side, independently, permanently. This wrong conception of the self-existent I. That's the very source of cyclic existence. It's the source of all our suffering, including those experiences we call happiness. So in order to renounce the delusions, the actual cause of suffering, we need to study the teachings that explain in more detail what the delusions are and how they function, and what their antidotes are, and how to practice their antidotes. So that's really the essence of the practice of Dharma, especially for beginners. To understand karma, the conventional reality, cause and effect, what actions lead to suffering and what actions lead to happiness, and to be able to know what the border between Dharma and non-Dharma is, and to know our own mind well enough to understand what sort of mind is impelling this action that we're about to engage in. As Kurukulla Lama Rinpoche, in the verse that we did last week, pretty sure we did this, do you remember, Bob? Led by this pure thought, mindfulness, alertness, great caution arise. The root of the teachings of keeping the pranimoksha vows, please bless me to accomplish essential practice. Pretty sure we talked about that. So mindfulness here means, well, when we meditate on the breath, for example, we need to be mindful. Or what it means, we need to remember. I think the Tibetan word is dempa, which means memory. You know? We need to remember what it is that we're supposed to be focused on. We have to, and you know, as our mind goes off the breath, we need to remind ourselves and bring it back, you know. So mindfulness is what keeps our mind meditating on the topic. Or if we're doing analytical meditation, we need to be mindful, or we need to remember the path of reasoning that we're following when we do analytical meditation. When we're thinking about a topic, trying to determine whether it's correct or not. So along with mindfulness, alertness, he says, mindful alertness and great caution arise. Alertness is this little corner of our mind, which when we're meditating on the breath, this little 5% of our mind, 3%, whatever it is standing guard like a sentry, watching for impending distraction. So our mind we're trying to focus here on the breath or whatever it is, you know, and the sentry is watching for, distraction coming across the horizon, you know. And then when it sees, it tries to deflect the distraction before it can grab the main part of our mind that's meditating and drag it away from the object. Alertness or vigilance. So as well as developing single-pointed concentration, we need to also develop this skill of watching our mind meditating and sort of protecting it. The great caution is Tibetans I think it's called Bhagya, which means conscientiousness, or it's just being really careful to not follow negative minds, being really careful not to create negative karma. So to know our mind that well, we see. So generally, and we talked about this, somebody even asked the question, I think, actions done to benefit simply this life alone are negative cause of suffering, because they just totally come from ego and attachment. Ego is what we call the ignorance, seeing the I as self-existent, or the wrong conception of self-existent I. That's what, in this terminology, we call ego. Ego and attachment. Lama Yeshe gave a short 4 or 5 day meditation course many years ago in Australia, and we published the teachings from that course in a little booklet that's also online called Ego, Attachment and Liberation, where he talked a lot about what he called the two departments, the two mental departments of our mental bureaucracy, the department of ignorance and the department of attachment. Ego, attachment and liberation. One of the old students complained about the title. He said, that'll put people off. I don't know if it did or not. That little book was quite popular. Okay, so so conscientiousness. So when we talk about delusions, remember we talk about 6 principal delusions and 20 secondary delusions. Maybe one time we should discuss all those in detail. But one of the 20 secondary delusions is lack of conscientiousness, or lack of great caution. Being careless in our actions. Just, yeah, I know it's negative, but I can purify it later, which shows no understanding of impermanence. I can purify it later. It shows not understanding the expandability of karma. How one tiny karma, negative karma, that's left unpurified, just festers and multiplies and gets stronger and stronger the longer we leave it. So what we really need to be able to see in our own mind what and why, we have to really begin to understand ourselves very, honestly, and because we're just looking at our mind, we don't have to tell anybody what's in there, we have to see exactly why we're doing this, why we're doing that, why did I say that, why am I about to say this, and see where is it coming from, attachment just to the happiness of this life, or, are we doing this with the idea, with the understanding that we're creating the cause to experience happiness in a future life, or we're creating the cause of liberation altogether, or are we creating the cause of enlightenment by doing this action with bodhicitta? So unless we do a lot of meditation, like formal meditation, like, sitting on the cushion and meditating on the breath, looking at our mind, studying the teachings, like the teachings on the principal and secondary delusions, recognizing them within ourselves. I really felt, actually, Lama Zopa Rinpoche taught on those delusions, a little briefly, but he went through them all. At the very first meditation course I did back in 72 in Nepal. And I thought it was like, this meditation course is amazing. It's like an introduction to myself. I'm finally meeting myself for the first time, because, 6 principal delusions, 20 secondary delusions, I had them all. It was like a full house of delusions. So it was, and it was one of the things that really helped me develop my faith in the Buddha's teachings, that they contained an explanation of the mind that at once was kind of unknown, but so familiar once you heard about it and looked at your mind in light of the teachings, which actually is what we're supposed to do. I mean, they said when you listen to Dharma teachings, you should use them as a mirror for your mind. So when the teacher is explaining this or that, we look in our mind, and it's kind of almost listening to teachings is really a form of analytical meditation, where you listen to what's being taught and at the same time see if it resonates within you or not. So that, those in particular, that those teachings really resonated. And there are other things like the Buddha saying, everything I teach is true, but don't believe it just because I said so. Because, he was, if you're in his presence, it would probably be overwhelming, like this. I can't even imagine what it was like, to be in the presence of the Buddha, but incredibly powerful. And of course, to have been there, you would have had, you have to have had the, would have to have created incredible merit to be in his presence. It's like, so few people were over the years that he was alive, compared to how many sentient beings existed at that time and have existed before and have existed since. So it was a very powerful presence, and you tend to sort of, and he had this charisma, that, you kind of really wanted to believe what he said. It'd be like being at a Donald Trump rally or something like that, if I can make that comparison, but more profound. So he said, don't believe it just because I said so. You wouldn't hear that there. But analyze my words well, like a goldsmith assays gold. He said, by rubbing, cutting, and melting. I've never assayed gold, so I'm not quite sure what the rubbing, cutting, and melting is, but I guess, someone comes to a goldsmith and says, you want to buy this gold? So they'll rub it, the surface, to see what happens. I guess there's something that happens if it's real gold, and cutting it and then heating it up and melting it. I guess it's a way of testing the purity. I don't know. So that's how we have to examine what the Buddha said himself, how to examine his teachings, I don't know what the equivalent for examining teachings is to rubbing, cutting, and melting, but look at them every which way and think about them and analyze them and see if you can disprove them or see if they accord with your own experience, see if they make sense in the world as you know it, stuff like that. Like those gold, melting, and basically prove them or disprove them, prove them true for yourself. And if you do prove them true for yourself, then you can accept them, but not just because I said so. So, my earlier education in secondary school was at a Christian school. I went to a Christian school for 10 years, primary and secondary. We had morning assembly with hymns and a prayer, Bible reading and a prayer. I still recite the Lord's Prayer every morning. And then we had a Bible class once a week. And it was all very dogmatic, and you weren't allowed to question anything. It's in the book, So it's in the Bible, so it must be true. It's not open to question. So this was so I kind of rejected. It was one of the reasons I rejected Christianity. It didn't really make sense to me to read the Bible literally and then not question things that didn't make sense. And the big question was, God created everything. Well, didn't look like, but he's all-knowing and all-loving, but it really didn't look like he did a very good job, because even as a schoolboy, I could see the world was kind of a bit of a disaster. So, and of course, the deeper question is, why did he need to create anything? Was it like boredom, or what was the reason to create all this suffering? But you weren't allowed to ask. So, after 10 years, it didn't take. Actually, when I had a couple of friends who were pretty avid Christians, we had a couple of clubs at school. There was the Crusaders, and they were a little more fanatical, the Crusaders, as the name might imply. And there was another lower level Christian group. I don't know, some kind of fellowship or something. So I had a couple of friends who belonged to one or both of these groups. They tried to sort of convert me. My family's Jewish, but we weren't particularly religious Jews. In fact, the first time I went to synagogue was in my early 20s, when one of my friends Jewish friends got married. So when I told my mother, she was a card-carrying atheist. When I told her, they want me to come to this Christian thing, she freaked out, and she gave me Bertrand Russell's book to read, Why I Am Not a Christian. So that helped kind of seal the deal. Until I ran into Lama Yeshe and Lama Zopa Rinpoche, and this first meditation course, where you didn't have to accept without question, what was in the texts. You had to tear it apart and try to prove it wrong. And try as I might, I couldn't. In fact, at first, in the first week or so, Lama Zopa Rinpoche was giving these teachings on, pretty standard Lamrim stuff, mind is beginningless, past and future lives, the 6 realms of cyclic existence, the hell realms, and this and that. And it was all kind of pretty fantastical, given where I was coming from. And, I just thought, how can people take this stuff seriously? It's just like, so I kept interrupting and asking questions and debating him. And I kind of felt really that I was the person that Buddhism had been waiting for 2,500 years to prove it wrong. Well, I certainly failed in that mission. But anyway. So that was eventually other people in the group told me to shut up, and then I started writing my questions down in the back of my notebook. And then I found, as the course went on, it was a 1-month course, that a lot of my questions were being answered in the course of time, so I could just cross them out from the back of my notebook. Oh, that one's answered, that one's answered. So by the end, there were still a few unanswered questions, and now, 50 years later, there's still a few unanswered questions, but now my role is more, trying to prove the teachings to be right. So I don't know how convincing I am on that. Okay. So renunciation is the bottom line, and renunciation of the cause of suffering, which is creating negative karma, and to help us be aware of what negative karmas shouldn't be created, and to help us not create them, then we take these various levels of vows, particularly the pratimoksha vows, or the vows of individual liberation, the vows of that we really need to take if we want to develop renunciation and stop creating negative karma. And as Lama Zopa says, the essence of morality, the practice of morality, which is really the bottom line of Buddhist practice, the essence of morality is taking and keeping precepts, particularly the pratimoksha vows. And as it says here, the root of the teachings is keeping the pratimoksha vows. Our 5 lay vows, or the vows of a monk or nun, or so on and so forth. So then the second of the 3 principal aspects of the path is bodhicitta. And as Lama Rinpoche says, without bodhicitta, we cannot receive enlightenment. So bodhicitta is the motivation we generated at the beginning. Bodhicitta is the principal cause of enlightenment. It's the seed of enlightenment. And bodhicitta, what is it? It's the determination to reach enlightenment for the sole purpose of enlightening all sentient beings. So there are kind of 2 benefits of bodhicitta. One is your own enlightenment, but that's not the point. The point is to use your own enlightenment as a tool to, as an essential tool to enlighten other sentient beings, to bring other sentient beings out of suffering to enlightenment. So one benefit is yourself getting enlightened. The greater benefit is all other sentient beings getting enlightened. And just as I've fallen into the sea of samsara, so have all mother migratory beings, or sentient, cyclic migratory beings. It means sentient beings in cyclic existence. Those who migrate, transmigratory beings. Tibetan word is droa, means a goer. Goer, G-O-E-R, one who goes from one realm to another. So Lama Zopa sometimes translates it as transmigrators. It's a funny word. But sentient beings also includes the arhats and the lower bodhisattvas, and the higher bodhisattvas. Those who are out of cyclic existence but not yet enlightened. Any unenlightened being is a sentient being, whether they're in cyclic existence or out of it. So when we use the word sentient beings a little loosely, we're generally referring to samsaric sentient beings. May I lead all sentient beings from suffering. Well, the arhats and the high Arya bodhisattvas, the higher bodhisattvas on the 8th, 9th, and 10th levels, they don't have any suffering. They're out of cyclic existence, but they're still sentient beings. So maybe it's making that distinction. Migratory beings. So here he refers to mother migratory beings. So I don't know, you may be familiar with the different techniques of developing bodhicitta. Of course, the first thing is to understand suffering. We have to understand our own suffering first. And, that's the first thing the Buddha taught in his first teaching. He taught the 4 noble truths. The first is the truth of suffering. And then we know, the 3 different levels of suffering. The suffering of suffering, which is the pain and anguish we all feel, and even animals recognize that as suffering, and want it to stop, and don't want it to recur, and don't like it when it's happening. So that's kind of gross suffering. Then the second level, what we were talking about before, as samsaric pleasure, but it's not real, it's not true pleasure, it's not real pleasure. It's called changeable suffering. Because while the feeling may be pleasant and experienced as happiness at first, it changes into suffering of suffering, given time. So I think we all know what that is. And then the deepest level of suffering, the third level of suffering, is pervasive suffering. And that simply means having a body and a mind under the control of delusion and karma, a body and a mind that are, even if they're not suffering at the moment, they're susceptible to suffering. It's only a matter of time before suffering of suffering arises in that body-mind combination under the control of delusion and karma, because the causes of suffering are in there, in the mind, in our mind. They just, I mean, you can't even put a number on it. There are so many. Unripened causes of suffering, negative karma created since beginningless time and carried on our mind stream since beginningless time, unripened seeds of suffering, unpurified seeds of suffering, seeds that, causes of suffering that are never lost, that never disappear unless they're experienced out. And, like a seed that grows into a flower, that seed's finished, its potential's expanded, and or purified, like a seed which is burnt in a fire, can no longer produce a plant. So if we haven't experienced our seeds of negative and positive karma, and if we haven't purified the seeds of negative karma through various practices, or if we haven't destroyed the positive seeds of happiness through anger or wrong views or things like that, then they remain in our mind to ripen at some point in the future. So the first thing we really need to do is to understand the nature of suffering and the depth and extent of our own suffering since beginningless time. How we've been reborn in each of the 6 realms of cyclic existence countless times. Whatever form of existence there is in cyclic existence, we have been that countless times. So when we think of, just what we can see on this earth, the billions of, I don't know how many different kinds of creature there are, animals, but even without looking at the animal realm, just looking at this 6, 7, 8, whatever it is, billion people, each life that we can see, each one of us we can see, we've had that life countless times each. So once we have a deep feeling for our own suffering, we can understand that the suffering that other sentient beings are experiencing. And from that can start, that can be the beginning of compassion. for the experiences of other sentient beings. It's like, you see I don't know, example, anyone remember Michael Milken, the junk bond king of the 80s? He went to jail for a while, I think. He was very wealthy, and I guess he's still wealthy when he came out of jail, but he had, I think, prostate cancer. So, he set up a foundation to investigate, to try and find a cure for prostate cancer. So, he had cancer. He understood the suffering that cancer patients go through. So that's what he related to, and that's what he tried to help. So, and I just saw on TV last night, I think someone else who's, a golfer whose 2-year-old daughter died of brain cancer. Terrible family tragedy. So he's set up a foundation for childhood brain cancer or something. So it's when you can relate to somebody's suffering, it kind of impels you to act, can impel you to act and to try and do something about it to prevent others from experiencing that suffering. So if we look at the widest possible view and think, well, I've experienced all of samsaric suffering over and over again since beginning this time. All the other sentient beings in samsara are experiencing the same thing. Therefore, I should do something about it, So we develop compassion and then try to act, to do something to alleviate other sentient beings' sufferings, all these, 3 levels of suffering that we've experienced ourselves since beginning this time. So then we, think, well, how do I do that? And an important aspect of it is to feel that this has been going on. All sentient beings have been suffering since beginningless time. Being born in one samsaric realm and then dying and being reborn again in that realm or in another realm, round and round like that, endlessly. Since beginningless time. And over that time, there have been countless sentient beings who've become Buddhas. There are infinite Buddhas in the past, present, and future. And these guys haven't been able to do anything about it. I mean, sentient beings are still suffering. What's up with that? I'm going to have to do it myself. So then, this taking personal responsibility to end the suffering for all sentient beings. So, it's a bit of God complex right there, or a little grandiose thinking. So, well, okay, I take responsibility for freeing all sentient beings from suffering. What do I need to do that? I need to be enlightened to do that. So therefore, that's how we generate bodhicitta. So one of the techniques for generating bodhicitta, based on our understanding of suffering, is called the sevenfold cause and effect meditation that was attributed to Atisha. So there are 6 causes and 1 effect in this sevenfold practice. And it's based on equanimity. So I don't know if we've done the equilibrium meditation a couple of times. I don't know if any of you have done it with me. think I might have led it a couple of times over at the centre. I think I might have done it once in one of these classes over the last year or so, however long I've been doing this. So first we have to build a mind of equanimity that sees all sentient beings as equal. So this is not making something equal that is inherently unequal. This is to see all sentient beings as equal, as in fact they are. Equal in wanting happiness and not wanting suffering. Particularly equal in having been what's called friend, enemy, and stranger since beginningless time. So at the moment, we discriminate sentient beings as, friends, family, some we love and we like, we keep close. And then ones we don't like, we hate, they make us angry. And we don't like them, we push them aside, we don't want anything to do with them, So we call those enemies, friends, enemies, and strangers is the vast majority of sentient beings. So, the friend is the sentient being who helps us one way or another. The enemy is one who harms us one way or another. And the stranger, which is the vast majority of sentient beings, neither help nor hinder. They're just irrelevant. So, attachment makes us want to help our friends, and anger or hatred wants us to harm our enemies, and the rest of sentient beings who are kind of irrelevant, we see them as self-existent through the lens of ignorance, feeling they are irrelevant. What we don't realize is that the sentient beings we discriminate as friend, enemy, and stranger are not always friend, enemy, and stranger. Many of our friends, before they became friends, we didn't know them. Maybe they were strangers. We didn't even know they existed. They somehow came into our life, and we liked them. They helped us. We got something out of it. So we liked them. So we got attached to them. So that the friend sort of brings up our attachment, and the enemy, there's someone we don't like, brings sort of we generate anger or hatred or dislike towards that person. But then the person apologizes or does something good for us, and think, oh, our mind changed. Then, and just by saying a few sweet words, maybe that enemy can become a friend, And then there's these strangers, they do come into our lives. I mean, our friends and enemies came into our life. They were strangers before. So actually, these relationships are constantly changing. The friend, enemy, and stranger of today aren't necessarily going to be the friend, enemy, and stranger of tomorrow. And then if we start extending it over the beginningless and endlessness of time, because of different karmas, we can see that different sentient beings, sometimes they're friends, sometimes they're enemies, sometimes they're strangers, but it's always changing. And that if you think about it, there's no sentient being that hasn't been friend, enemy, and stranger an equal number of times. So to really believe these labels that we put on different people, different sentient beings at this time, and feel that there's something that this is a real friend, you know, this is a real enemy, this is a real stranger. That's you know, deluded thinking. So if we meditate on that and see become more aware of these ever-changing relationships, the strong discrimination of friend, enemy, and stranger weakens, you know, and we can start to equalize in our mind all sentient beings as having been friend, enemy, and stranger equal number of times, and we can see them more equanimously, you know, without attachment, anger, and ignorance. So in terms of developing bodhicitta, on the basis of this equilibrium or equanimity meditation, then, you know, the six causes are, you know, all sentient beings have been our mother, they've been kind, we need to repay the kindness, and we generate love, and we generate compassion, and the sixth one is then the special intent of the exceptional thought. So that's the one where we take responsibility on ourselves, that I myself alone will enlighten all sentient beings. So then that leads to then how to do that. I have to become enlightened in order to help all sentient beings. Therefore, so that's the seventh. So those are the six causes. And the seventh aspect is this generation of bodhicitta, that, you know, when we go through those six causes, then we come to the result. Bodhicitta, I must reach enlightenment in order to enlighten all sentient beings by myself alone. So I always think it's a little tricky, that whole thing, in that, you know, if the beginningless, if the past, present, at least, infinite Buddhas haven't been able to enlighten all sentient beings, even if I become enlightened, what makes me think I can do it? You know? So I think there's something, you know, when you hear what the qualities of the enlightened mind, the omniscient mind of the Buddha, it sees all past, present, and future simultaneously. There's no past, present, and future. It's just there, like looking at the palm of your hand, you know. Enlightened mind sees past, present, all past, present, and future. It sees the mind of each and every sentient being that's ever been, that ever will be, that is now. Every thought that every sentient being has ever had, every thing that each and every you know, you see, like, you know, the thousands of moths around a street lamp in the summer. You know? Each one is an individual sentient being with its own beginningless past history and with its own individual future, as a moth, as a tiger, as a snake, as a hell being, as a human, as a god. Each one. And the enlightened mind can see what each one is thinking now, I mean, I don't know what they're thinking. They're flying around this lamp, you know. Oh, look, there's a lamp. It sees every ultimate and relative existence. You know, so all phenomena have two aspects: have a relative, conventional aspect, and they have an ultimate aspect. You know, minds, physical phenomena. So the enlightened mind sees all the, you know, the ultimate and conventional realities of all phenomena. I mean, it's kind of, I mean, it really is inconceivable, that kind of mind, you know? So if we get in, when we get enlightened, you know, that we have that mind. So if it's true, and it is, that each and every sentient being has a clear light nature of mind, has the potential to become enlightened, and eventually will become enlightened. So if we see past, present, and future simultaneously, we can see all sentient beings already enlightened. So maybe that's what it means, that I myself alone will enlighten all sentient beings. I don't actually do it to them, I have to do it to myself. And then when my mind becomes, I'm making this up, I don't know, I haven't heard this exactly from any Lama, you know. But I mean, think about it for yourself and think what it means. I myself will enlighten all sentient beings. And, you know, there are meditations we do. Has anyone done the Guru Shakyamuni Buddha meditation with me? I've led that a few times at the center. But that finishes up with, you know, ourselves, you know, in the aspect of Shakyamuni Buddha and sending out beams of you know, light rays to each and every sentient being throughout infinite space in all the 10 directions. And on each beam of light, there's a little miniature Shakyamuni Buddha, and that alights on top of the head of each sentient being and dissolves into that being and brings them to enlightenment. So then at the end of the meditation, we see all sentient beings enlightened in the aspect of Guru Shakyamuni Buddha. And then we think, you know, okay, now I've enlightened all sentient beings as I set out to do at the beginning of this meditation. We generate bodhicitta at the beginning. So then we visualize all sentient beings as enlightened. But, you know, we know from our own experience, we can't, as the Buddha himself said, you know, how does the Buddha benefit sentient beings? You know, the Buddha doesn't remove sentient beings' suffering by hand. It doesn't wash away sentient beings' negative karma with holy water. The Buddha doesn't transplant his own realizations into the minds of other sentient beings. The Buddha benefits sentient beings by showing them the path, by leading them on the path, by giving teachings and showing us, you know, how that we have to do it for ourselves. We have to understand and follow the path. So anyway, I don't know what I'm talking about, but developing bodhicitta, so, just as I fall into the sea of samsara, I understand my own suffering, so have all mother migratory beings. So all other beings in cyclic existence are in the same boat, except they're not in the boat, they're in the sea. And they're called mother sentient beings because when we're trying to develop, the first meditation in the sevenfold cause and effect meditation, the first of the 6 causes is seeing all sentient beings as mother. So even though all sentient beings have been everything to us, mother, father, sister, brother, friend, enemy, stranger, whatever, countless times each, to develop the positive qualities of love and compassion, we remember especially that each sentient being has been our mother. So we just establish that fact in our mind, and thinking about it in different ways. So then we remember the mother's kindness. So, a lot of people are kind to us in our life, hopefully. Sometimes our father is more kind than our mother, or, and a lot of people have a lot of people over the years I've heard have difficulty with this because, my mother was really horrible to me, or, my mother died giving birth to me, or, they don't have this experience in this life of the kindness of the mother. But generally speaking, of all the people in our life, our mother was the most kind, in that, she carried us in her womb for 9 months, and had to make a lot of sacrifices during that time, and I had to put up with a number of difficulties, and sometimes, mothers get very sick, but it was really our existence and our welfare was uppermost in her mind during the pregnancy. And then, she went through a lot of difficulty and pain, giving birth to us. And then once we were born, had to look after us, keep us clean, and nothing about us was disgusting. I'm not sure I haven't seen Western mothers do it, but in the East, in Nepal, the mothers, in Nepal and Tibetan, they lick the snot off the baby's noses and stuff like that. I don't know if Western mothers do it. I've never seen them, lick the caca, but it's like nothing is filthy or disgusting for the baby. Of the baby and the mother, and if anything happens to baby, the mother is like, she'd much rather something bad happens. The mother would much rather it happen to her than the baby. It's like really, mother in that case would prefer to experience the suffering of the baby, of her child, rather than have the child experience it. And then, the mother protects the little baby from harm, always watching to make sure it doesn't fall over or, get burnt or whatever happens, and is always concerned with the baby's, with the child's welfare, with education, So the mother educates it in the ways of the world, you know, how to survive, and then make sure the child gets a proper education, going to school, and so on and so forth. So, you know, there are different, there are 4 different kindnesses that we usually meditate on in this too, when we're remembering the kindness of the mother. And thinking of those kindnesses, there's no other sentient being that treats us with that kind of kindness, not even our father. So then the third meditation, the third cause then is to reflect on how important it is to repay the kindness to repay our mother's kindness, and also remembering that each sentient being has been kind to us numberless times as our mother, not just as a human mother, but as a dog, as a cat. And you see these videos on YouTube or wherever, you know, of mother animals protecting their young, you know, taking on much bigger, more vicious, savage animals in order to protect the young, or even sacrificing their lives, you know, leading a predator away from the babies, you know. I mean, you know, so, and then also, you know, another kindness, you know, in order to protect us, the mother often creates so much negative karma, you know, so, and will suffer when that negative karma ripens. The negative karma was created solely for looking after us, you know. It's another kindness. So, you know, how to repay the kindness is, you know, so even if someone gives us a birthday present, we feel, well, we should repay that kindness by giving them a birthday present or Christmas or whatever it is, you know. So, you know, repaying the kindness. But when we think that, you know, the mother has given us this perfect human rebirth, where we have the opportunity to study and practice Dharma and attain enlightenment, you know, that just repaying the kindness in a temporal way, you know, with Christmas presents or, you know, a day at the spa or something, it's, you know, not really adequate. And ultimately, the only way to repay the mother's kindness is to lead her to enlightenment. So that's the ultimate way of repaying a mother's kindness, because through her kindness, we have this perfect human rebirth and the opportunity to meet and practice the Dharma and reach enlightenment ourselves. So then thinking about the kindness of the mothers, then we generate love, pure love. Love is normally what we call love is just attachment, you know. You know, you make me feel good. It's kind of transactional, you know, you make me feel good. So as long as you make me feel good, I'll be nice to you, you know. So I'll tell you I love you and I'll support you, I'll do this or that, you know. So that's not true love, that's attachment. That kind of love, we call love, but it's not really love. It's just a manifestation of ego and attachment. True love is wanting others to be happy. You know, being more concerned for the other's happiness than our own. That's true love, you know. Your happiness is more important than mine. And great love is feeling like that for each and every sentient being without exception. That each thing great love is feeling each and every other sentient being's happiness is more important than my own. I'm only one. They're infinite. I mean, if you look at the balance, I mean, there's not even You can't even measure it. That other sentient beings are infinite. We are just one. So how much more is that great happiness compared to our tiny little happiness? And then, so that's generating great love. And compassion is, wanting others to be free from suffering. And again, thinking that their freedom from suffering is more important than my own. Just as I don't want to suffer, nor do they. My suffering is just one. Their suffering is infinite. There are so many, can't count them. So again, generating great compassion, wanting each and every sentient being, mother sentient being, to be free from suffering. So then on the basis of great love and great compassion generated like that, then we come to the, special intention or the exceptional attitude, or whatever, however you translate it, like some great thought, highest thought. That I take personal responsibility for the freedom from suffering, the establishment of great happiness, the enlightenment of each and every sentient being. I alone will do it. Sounds familiar? So wow, how can I do that? Then, so on the base that those 6 steps, then we generate the 7th, the effect. As I said before, we generate bodhicitta. So that's one technique of developing bodhicitta. Bless me to see this train supreme bodhicitta and bear the responsibility of freeing migratory beings. So Kurukulla Rinpoche said, look at yourself. Since beginningless time, you've been suffering incredibly by wandering endlessly through the various realms of cyclic existence, mainly the hell, predator, animal realms. And just as you've been suffering in samsara since beginningless time, so too have all other samsaric sentient beings. Thinking in this way, cultivate bodhicitta, or as the prayer says, please bless me to receive bodhicitta by understanding this. So the other way of developing bodhicitta is through Shantideva's technique of exchanging self for other. And then, so there are 4 steps in that. Thinking of the shortcomings of the self-cherishing mind, the benefits of cherishing others, and so forth. And then there's a combination. I think Lama Tsongkhapa maybe put those 2 techniques together, the 7-fold cause and effect and the 4 exchanging self for other techniques. And there's I think 10 or 11 step process that was, I think it's mentioned in Lam Rim Chenmo, the great Lam Rim. And also there was a little booklet published by Ribush Rinpoche. So none of you probably met him. He was here in Boston 20 or so years ago. And in fact, we invited him at Lama Zopa's request because we were looking for a place for the center. We didn't have our own place at that time in the 90s. And Lama Zopa Rinpoche said, invite Ribush Rinpoche to Boston to give teachings, and his coming here will remove hindrances to finding a center. And so he came and he gave some teachings, initiations, and he gave advice to the community. The main one was to work together harmoniously. And And a year or so after he left, we found the center in Medford, and and raised enough money to put a deposit down and buy it. So so he gave a teaching on how to develop bodhicitta. And that was published as a little booklet by our Singapore Center, Amitabha Buddhist Center in Singapore. We had used to have copies of it here. Now it's online. Ribur, R-I-B-U-R, Ribur Rinpoche, if you look it up, how to develop bodhicitta. It's on we used to have it on our website, lamayeshe.com, but we decided, and we had a lot of other Lama's teachings on that, but we decided to keep lamayeshe.com mostly for the teachings of Lama Yeshe and Lama Zopa Rinpoche, with some from His Holiness the Dalai Lama, and the Buddha, and maybe Lama Tsongkhapa, Tisha, and a lot of other Lamas' teachings. We created a new website called Teachings from Tibet, teachingsfromtibet.com. And on that website, I think you'll find Ribur Rinpoche's teachings, how to develop bodhicitta, these 11 points. Maybe we can do that sometime. Anyway. So please bless me to... so then Ribur Rinpoche says, and then Lama Tsongkhapa says, clearly recognizing that I will not achieve enlightenment by developing bodhicitta without practicing the 3 types of morality, please bless me to practice the bodhisattva vows with great energy. So here's now getting into the practices that bodhisattva does, the 6 perfections, essentially, which are morality, which are generosity, morality, patience, effort, concentration, and wisdom. So Wisdom Publications recently published a couple of books by Lama Zopa Rinpoche, drawn from Lama Yeshe Wisdom Archive teachings. One's called Bodhicitta, and the other one is called The 6 Perfections. And then they just published another one on the 4th perfection called Patience, based on the 6th chapter of Shantideva's Bodhicharyavatara, Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life. So those 3 recent books from Wisdom Publications cover a lot of this practice of bodhicitta. Bodhicitta, 6 perfections, and patience. So Kunalama Rinpoche says, in order to receive aspirational bodhicitta, the thought wishing to receive enlightenment for the sake of all sentient beings, and engaged bodhicitta, actually following the path to enlightenment. So you get that? There's 2 kinds of bodhicitta, aspirational bodhicitta and engaging bodhicitta. So aspirational, I'd like to receive enlightenment for the sake of all sentient beings. I'd like to develop bodhicitta. So that's aspirational. And engaged bodhicitta, which is actually following the path to enlightenment, practicing the 6 perfections. It's necessary to practice the 3 aspects of the perfection of morality: the morality of abstaining from negativity, the morality of creating all virtue, and the morality of working for sentient beings. So in generosity, we have 3 kinds of generosity. In morality, or charity, or whatever you call it. Here we have 3 aspects of morality. Although this verse mentions specifically the 3 divisions of morality, it also refers, indirectly to the practice of all 6 perfections. However, the following verse refers more specifically to the last 2 perfections, concentration and wisdom. By pacifying distractions to wrong objects and correctly analyzing the meaning of reality, please bless me to generate quickly within my mind stream the unified path of calm abiding and special insight. So to develop perfect concentration, we need to practice perfect morality. I think somebody asked about this last week. So without a foundation of pure moral conduct, there are too many distractions in our mind for us to be able to develop single-pointed concentration. If we don't have single-pointed concentration, we can't, what it says here, correctly analyze the meaning of reality. You know, if we can't really focus our mind first on the logical analysis of the way things appear, and follow the logic that leads us to the conclusion that there's not an atom of self-existence anywhere, that everything is interdependent, and even though at the moment we see everything as existing from its own side, we don't see things as existing as a projection of our own mind. Everything looks very real and kind of concrete out there, and especially ourself, our I, feels very real and concrete here inside ourselves. When we realize that things don't exist in the way they appear like that, in fact, they're empty of inherent self-existence, you know, if went with, you know, perfect concentration, when we analyze the meaning of reality like that, we come to a conclusion that there's no self-existence anywhere, and we get a glimpse of emptiness. The better our single point of concentration, the more we can focus on that experience of emptiness, or the bare perception of emptiness. And at first it may be just a glimpse and it's gone, because the habit of seeing things as self-existent, the beginningless habit of seeing things as self-existent is too strong to last. But so then again we analyze, and then we get another glimpse of emptiness, and we hold it for a little bit longer with our perfect concentration. You know, this direct experience of emptiness beyond the intellect. So we have to go through that process again and again, gradually increasing the period of time where we can experience directly the emptiness of our mind. That's how we start, right? As Lama Tsongkhapa said, you know, first we have to realize the emptiness of our own mind. So again, for that we still need perfect concentration. And once we've realized that, and that's what actually frees us from psychic existence, then we can realize the emptiness of all other phenomena. So then we unify the path of calm abiding, or, you know, single point of concentration, and special insight into the nature of reality, emptiness. Here, Lama Tsongkhapa is saying that our minds are always distracted by objects of the senses. For example, attractive visual forms or interesting sounds. Our minds are always concentrated on those. Calm abiding, or mental quiescence, shamatha, is a kind of reversal of our normal attraction to sense objects, the opposite of distraction. It is the control of single-pointed concentration. Shama means peace. Ta means one-pointedness. This is to be combined with penetrative insight. In Tibetan, the phrase Yangdagpa Jogpa means concentrating on the absolute nature. Yangdagpa, I think it means perfect view. And Jogpa means single-pointed. Lama Tsongkhapa asks for blessings to quickly achieve the path that unifies shamatha and vipassana, or higher insight. When we achieve this path, we are close to enlightenment. So up to this point, Lama Tsongkhapa has been talking about the general training of the mind in the Paramitayana path. Next, he talks about Tantra. Having become a pure vessel by training in the general path, please bless me to enter the holy gateway of the fortunate ones, the supreme Vajra vehicle. In other words, he's saying here, please bless me to achieve the Vajrayana path, which allows me to receive enlightenment in this lifetime. If you follow the general Paramitayana path, it can take you a long time to collect the necessary merit and reach enlightenment, as long as 3 countless great eons. Guru Shakyamuni Buddha, for example, had great energy, but it still took him that long to receive enlightenment. If you follow the Vajrayana path, it's much quicker. If you fully observe the fundamental practice of keeping the tantric vows and samayas, or pledges, purely, the practice of Vajrayana can lead you to enlightenment in 1 or perhaps 16 lifetimes. It's like the difference between going somewhere by airplane or by train. The tantric path is like a plane. The Paramitayana path is like a train. There are 2 types of realizations or siddhi involved. There are the general realizations, of which there are 8, such as the attainment of the sword, the attainment of eye medicine, and so forth, and the sublime realization, which is enlightenment itself. The foundation for attaining these 2 realizations is the perfect observation of vows and pledges, as Lama Tsongkhapa makes clear in the next verse. So you can, I hope you have this text, you're following along. At that time, the basis of accomplishing the 2 attainments is keeping pure vows and samaya. So vows are the vows we take, the pratimoksha vows, the 5 or 36 or 200 or 300, depending, fully ordained monks and nuns. Then there's the bodhisattva vows. There are 64 of those, and then the tantric vows. There are 22 of those. And the samaya are the pledges that we, the practices that we pledge to do or promise to do to our Vajra master at the time of the initiation, when at the initiation we get a commitment to recite a certain number of mantras every day, or to practice the sadhana of the deity into which we've just been initiated, to practice the sadhana or method of accomplishment every day. Sometimes we have a commitment or samaya to do Guru Puja twice a month. So we do it twice a month at the center, so those who have that commitment can more easily fulfill that commitment. So things like that. The pledges, promises we make to practice, to do certain practices connected with the tantric deity. Having become firmly convinced of this, please bless me to protect these vows and pledges like my life. He says, please bless me to observe the vows and pledges just as I take care of my life, because he thinks that in order to receive the uncreated or effortless stage, it is enlightenment, it is more important to observe the vows and pledges, the foundation of all realizations, than to take care of this temporal life. This life feels so real and so big and important and concrete. And in one way it is, because it's a perfect human rebirth. We have a chance to practice and study Dharma and completely alter our future for the better. Yet, this is just one tiny moment in beginningless and endless string of lives. We've been being born and dying and being reborn, life after life, since beginningless time. I mean, even the Buddha, the omniscient mind, can't see how many lives we've had, because they're beginningless. So from that point of view, keeping our vows and pledges pure, even if we have to die for it, it's more important to do that than break them, Lama Tsongkhapa says. The next verse alludes to the 4 classes of Tantra: Kriya, Charya, Yoga, and Mahanuttara, or action, performance, yoga, and highest yoga Tantra. Then, having realized the importance of the 2 stages, the essence of the Vajrayana, by practicing with great energy, never giving up the 4 sessions, please bless me to realize the teachings of the Holy Guru. So the main form of Tantra that Kurukulla Lama commentary, the main form of Tantra that we should practice is highest yoga Tantra, which includes father Tantras such as Yamataka and mother Tantras such as Haruka and Kalachakra. This class of Tantra also includes the graduated paths of generation and completion stages. So those are the 2 stages that Lama Tsongkhapa refers to: the generation stage and the completion stage. One tantric teaching likens these 2 stages to a flower and its smell. Without the flower, there's no smell of the flower. Similarly, without the generation stage, there's no way to practice the completion stage. There are different ways of dividing up the day into sessions, like 4 sessions of 6 hours each, 2 in the day and 2 in the night, or 6 sessions of 4 hours each, 3 in the day and 3 in the night. So this can refer to how we divide up our day when we're in serious retreat, but also if we're a full-time practitioner, we could divide up our day like that too. The next verse reads, "Like that, may the gurus who show the noble path and the spiritual friends who practice it have long lives. Please bless me to pacify completely all outer and inner hindrances." So here we pray for blessings for our gurus who show us the noble path and our spiritual friends who follow it correctly to live long lives. And for ourselves to be able to pacify outer and inner hindrances. Outer hindrances are, for example, external enemies, other living beings who harm us and disturb our Dharma practice. Inner hindrances are such things as sickness that afflict our body and negativities that afflict our mind. So we ask for blessings to pacify all those hindrances. So again, we have to do it for ourselves, but we can ask for inspiration from the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, from our gurus, to help us. And the last verse is, "In all my lives, never separated from perfect gurus, may I enjoy the magnificent Dharma. By completing the qualities of the stages and paths, may I quickly attain the state of Vajradhara." The primordial Buddha, Dorji Chung. We pray that in all future lives, may we never be separated from perfect gurus, because the guru is the root of the path. As it says at the beginning, the foundation of all good qualities. Even though there's benefit in simply meeting a guru, the actual purpose of doing so is to practice. Therefore, we pray to enjoy the Dharma through having met a guru and to follow the guru correctly in order to realize the grounds and paths and thereby quickly achieve the enlightened state of Vajradhara. So that is a brief explanation of this prayer, the foundation of all good qualities, which, although short, is a very precious teaching. It contains all the important essential points of the path to enlightenment. I received this teaching from His Holiness the Dalai Lama in Sarnath. And I received this teaching, from Kurukulla Lama in Nepal in 1975 when this was given. It was an amazing blessing to receive that teaching from him. And we received 2 teachings, this one, and I hope you've got the text, and because there's there's still quite a bit. He says a few more things after this, and then there's some very interesting questions. I don't think I asked any of them, but yeah, some great questions and answers further on. So I thought I might get to that, but obviously didn't. No. So strongly recommend to read that. And he also gave a teaching commentary on Atisha's Lamp for the Path. So that, that would be another excellent one. Lamp for the Path, which is the very first Lamrim text written by Atisha soon after he got to Tibet, and became the foundation of, all the Lamrim texts in the different Tibetan traditions after that. So we got a short commentary from Kunu Lama. We also received a longer commentary from His Holiness the Dalai Lama. So it would be interesting to maybe go through those commentaries at some point. Anyway, that's it. Buddhism in a nutshell. Or Buddhism from a nutcase. So thank you very much. Probably.
I have a quick question for you.
Yeah.
Last week we had talked about the 10 non-virtues.
Yeah.
I was just wondering why it is that like body and speech, go from like worst offense down, and then mind, it's the opposite way. It goes from least offensive to, to the worst.
No idea.
Okay.
Hadn't noticed.
Yeah, I was just wondering. I was like,
that's interesting though. Covetousness, ill will, wrong views. Yeah.
yeah.
Good observation. What do you think?
I'm perplexed by it. That's why I was asking. I was like, I don't understand why it does that.
Well, now you've ruined my night.
Sorry about that.
I won't be able to sleep. I'll be thinking about it all night.
Oh.
Don't worry, I'll sleep.
Okay.
All right, well, maybe it's a good question we should ask Yeshe. See if he has an answer.
Okay. Thank you.
Hey guys, thank you very much. As I say, I don't know much, so this probably doesn't benefit you very much, but it's a lot of help for me because normally I don't think about this stuff. So appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you for your time, Nick. You are full of so much knowledge. Oh, you are. And one thing you said that if you look at all the suffering in the world, we've been in all those situations, and a light went off because it's hard for me to think about, well, what are my past lives? I do watch the Dalai Lama once in a while on TV. And he said, he can't remember his past life, but he knows people have told him when he was a young boy what he did when they came to his cabin and whatever. But when you said the suffering of the world, it made me think, because I'm watching TV now and there's so much suffering because of the pandemic. And a friend of mine, his father has Parkinson's, and he was mugged and pushed him down in Chicago. He's in a coma, and they're taking him off life support tonight.
Terrible.
It's just so much suffering. And you helped me get a handle on, I am so lucky to be even introduced to the Mayahana tradition. I am so blessed to even meet Geshe.
Yeah, well.
And have your knowledge in my life. So I want to thank you.
Okay, Joan, thank you. Appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Okay, guys. So again, thank you. Let's just dedicate the merit. So, as I always say, we started with bodhicitta. We've been studying this very precious teaching by Kurukulla Lama on the basis of the prayer by Lama Tsongkhapa. So just so many blessings in all that. So we've really, I think, generated a lot of merit. So let's dedicate that to the enlightenment of all sentient beings. So think, because of this merit created tonight and, throughout the course. And also we think of the merit created in past, present, future by all the Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, our teachers, and even ordinary sentient beings. So if we just rejoice at all that merit, which is the cause of happiness and success, and then we dedicate it by thinking, because of all this merit, may I quickly reach enlightenment for the sake of all sentient beings. Okay, so next week's off, and I think in 2 weeks we start another module. We're calling it used to be called Meditation 101, I think. We're calling it How to Meditate, and I'm going to base it on Kathleen MacDonald's book by the same name, How to Meditate, published by Wisdom. That's a very comprehensive treatment of the subject, and I think a good basis for that next module. So, if you're interested in how to meditate,
Who was that by again?
Kathleen MacDonald, Sangye Kadra, Wisdom Publications.
Yes, okay, I have that.
How to meditate.
All right, thank you.
Okay, you guys. Again, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you for tonight.
Sure, you're welcome.
Have a wonderful day.
Yes.
See you all again. Bye.
Okay, bye.
Thank you very much, Bob.